That's now 14 goals scored from the last 3 games, 0 conceded. What were we worried about? Chelsea traveled to St. Reece James Park and emerged 3-0 winners. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. SCN! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the
championship! Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P. And for those of you that don't know, this is another Chelsea match review, more specifically a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Newcastle. But before I get into all that, I want you all to know that we do have a sponsor for this show. They go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link is in the description. Okay, so Chelsea traveled up to Newcastle and emerged 3-0 winners. Goal scorers Reece James with a brace, and then Jorginho with the penalty. In this match review, we're going to be focusing on advancing the ball into dangerous areas and what changed between the first half and the second half. We're also going to talk about Reece James and his ascendancy in the Chelsea squad. But there really is only one place to start, and that is Chelsea's pressing and counter-pressing. Now, much of what I'm going to say today has to have a caveat attached to it because Newcastle were extremely poor. They came out with 0 intensity, did not match the energy of the crowd, the enthusiasm, did not feed off them whatsoever, and Chelsea took full advantage of it, came out and played with the right intensity, the right tempo, the right pace from minute 1 to minute 90, and as a result, Newcastle couldn't live with us. You know when Chelsea are going to play well in the first 20 minutes. If they're playing at the right tempo, they're dictating the tempo and hemming teams in, you know we're going to have a good day, and that was prevalent today. Chelsea's counter-pressing and pressing were on full display. And it takes a lot of energy in order to play that way. But one of the main components to having a good press is having 10 guys committed to the same cause. And Chelsea had that in spells today that were, just on full display. We had the front press with Kai Havertz, who did a good job pressing the keeper Darlow. And then you had the support from Ziyech and Callum Hudson-Odoi on his flanks. But mainly, most of the press, most of where the release was coming from for Newcastle was trying to go long. And they had no release because the likes of Rudiger, the likes of Thiago Silva and Christensen, whenever Darlow tried to release the ball long, were met by one of those three. And they dominated the game and kept Newcastle basically hemmed in their own half. Like, we didn't really have much work to do in the first half or the second half, based on the fact that our center backs were so dominant in the air, so dominant and aggressive at winning the ball back. And they weren't alone. Let's get it right. When Chelsea did on the odd occasion lose the ball, you saw a gang of people going after retrieve it, the likes of Jorginho, Conte, Chilwell, Reece James, of course, as well. And everyone had the right sort of intensity and energy to try and win the ball back. And that's what you need when you're trying to press or counter press. I thought Chelsea's press sequences, they showed press a lot, but didn't necessarily go and pursue the ball because a lot of the times Newcastle were so threatened by the fact that Chelsea were pressing so high that they decided to go long. And whenever they went long, it just played right into our hands because the likes of St. Maximin and then the likes of Callum Wilson were unable to win any of those aerial duels. And if they did, Chelsea were the first, to first ball, second balls, third balls, all of that. We just kept on finding ourselves right where we needed to be at the right time. And that's exactly what makes a press so successful. To have something close to like 80% possession throughout the match away from home at a club that is definitely buoyed by the fact that they have new owners, that there's a vibrancy around the club right now. To come out and completely eviscerate them, like I'm talking 80% possession away at Newcastle, where we normally, I wouldn't say normally, but like where it's proven to be a troubling ground for us, that is impeccable. It's a game that that Thomas Tuchel took seriously because he set the intensity level really high. We were pressing all game long and successful at most of the game as well. But he did say something in the post-game presser that kind of stuck out to me, and he said it multiple times actually in most of his pressers, where he said that it's very hard to play a game where you're the only one setting the intensity, you're the only one setting the tempo and rhythm of the game. And he's exactly right. Like when you're the only one being the aggressor in the match, the only one that's really trying to play the game and like be aggressive, and the other teams is trying to sit back. It makes it very difficult to play football at a, just to play football and, execute on a high level, because it's like you're trying to play your football, but the team is basically trying to play anti-football by like, taking the sting out of the game, taking all the energy out of the game. You saw Darlow, who I must have counted at least 3 or 4 times where he had the ball for more than like 20 seconds and, wasn't cautioned and stuff like that. But that was all designed to slow the game down and take Chelsea out of their rhythm. It didn't really work because there was large portions of the game where Chelsea just had complete domination, complete control, and set the tempo from minute 1 to minute 90. And you knew that as we got into the latter stages of the game, they were going to tire. They weren't going to be able to hold their shape as well, just because when you are, that relentlessly and aggressively pressed all game, over time, you're just going to get tired, maybe not with your feet, but definitely mentally, and you switch off. And we saw that in the second half. Chelsea did not stop pressing, brought on some fresh bodies. The likes of Ross Barkley, Ruben Loftus-Cheek came into the game and gave us new energy and new thrust within the midfield. And it was all the difference, really, when you think of it. When we made those changes is when Chelsea became their most dangerous, because we had the fresh bodies and the same intensity throughout the match. So hats off to Tuchel, really just recognizing that this is a game where we needed to play, set the tempo, and play with the aggression that we showed from minute 1 to minute 90. And without it, I don't think that we would have been able to find the gaps in behind, because to be honest, the way that they set up with their 5-3-2, it was very difficult to break them down. But the fact that we're relentless on the press, we're relentless winning the ball back, just basically led to mental fatigue on their part, and eventually we got the breakthrough. And of course, the breakthrough comes from none other than Reece St. James, our wingback. I'm pretty sure on one of the pre-match previews that I did probably on the Blue Lounge with Mo, Kasim, and those guys, I mentioned that it was going to be crucial to have our wingbacks get in the box and provide us with box presence. And I also probably said something along the lines of the fact that, I think those two guys, Chilwell and Reece James, are probably 2 of our better ball strikers at the club. Obviously Romelu Lukaku's there as well. But outside of that, I would say Reece James and Chilwell strike the ball with the best of them, And that was, again, on full display. Reece James, wow, left foot, right foot, does not matter. He's hitting it clean, pure, and true. And, this is exactly, I'm not trying to blow my own horn. I know it's not hard to tell what's happening here with Chelsea and our wingbacks and the likes of Reece James, seeing him ascend into this goal-scoring dynamo right now. It's just the fact that we're pushing more bodies forward. We're allowing these guys to commit into the attacking areas more because we need them. They're basically where our width comes from now, So seeing them inside the box and seeing them finish is not really a surprise, because they have quality. But I'm sure not many would have thought that Reece James would have 3 goals at this point in the season right now. He's probably started maybe 4 or 5 games, and he's already got 3 goals. And he's been incredibly effective, not just in the offensive phases of the game, but also in transition and the defensive phases of the game. This is why so many people consider him to be one of the best right backs in the world right now. And it's not just coming from me. You can listen to commentators all over the world now heralding him as one of the best right backs in the world. And it's not hyperbole. I don't think so either, because he's so complete. He's a guy that is very aggressive, very strong as a fullback, which is probably his more natural position. He's got quickness. He understands the game. He reads the game really well. And if he makes a mistake, he has the ability to catch up and get back into position and, ward off an attack by either using his strength and physicality or by, just using his defensive guile. And he's so young. He's not really hit his stride yet. He's 22 years old. And we're seeing these performances from him. Now, granted, he wasn't really given a lot to do on the defensive aspects of the game. He was mainly focusing on trying to get forward, connect to build attacks on the right flank and connect with our attackers. But aside from that, just his mentality, you know that he doesn't shut off. You know that he has ice in his veins, and you know that he's the kind of guy that you can depend on to deliver in key moments. And he's shown that again today. Steps up into the box. I think it was Callum that put the cross in, and it just falls to Reece James. He shimmies, hits it with his left, and no keeper in the world stopping that, right? It's just like his ball striking ability, again, is just second to none. And then the second goal, you see him again. He lays it off for Ruben. Ruben takes a fierce shot, deflects off of a defender, comes right back to Reece James. He resets and just crushes it again. Like, you really couldn't script it any better than that, just to see Reece James at St. James Park, score a brace. And for those that think that he had the shout for the hat trick with Jorginho taking the penalty, just know that there is a hierarchy at the club when it comes to penalty taking. And Reece James came over not asking for it. He came over to Jorginho, clarified it in his post-match. He came over to try and encourage him to score. He wanted him to score. This is the team that we have right now, guys that aren't really worried about individual statistics. They're more about the collective, and that's what you want. This is how you win titles. You have a team that's not really fussed about who's got who's on a hat trick, who's doing this, who's doing what. We just know that we need our best takers taking them. But having said that, Reece James has got ice. He's the kind of guy that we saw in the midweek against Southampton that you want as a penalty taker, because that guy is unflappable. He's incredible. And lo and behold, I don't think I need to make mention of the fact that he was my man of the match. He's been incredible all season, and I'm looking for more of these types of performances from him coming forward. Now that Chelsea settled in this 3-4-3 system, I think that our wingbacks are going to have a real presence in the opposition's 18, and I expect them to do damage there. The likes of Chilwell and Reece James can definitely strike the ball, and they definitely like getting into the box and causing havoc there. So long may it continue, but again, Reece James was my man of the match. Now, for most of the first half, what we did witness was Chelsea trying to work it down the flanks, trying to use the space that was provided out there with the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, who I thought had a decent game considering, and of course, obviously our wingbacks as well. The problem with that was we didn't really necessarily have the same sort of box presence. I thought that Thomas Tuchel definitely instructed the team to be aggressive but play safe and be smart. So we didn't really have a lot of guys, bombing into the box. For the most part, we were very light there. So when we did look for the crosses and cutbacks and whatnot, there wasn't really a whole lot of people to get on the end of them, outside of maybe Kai Havertz on the odd occasion. Or if we look back post, you'd see one of Ziyech or Callum Hudson-Odoi. But the likes of Jorginho or Kante got in the box every now and then, but they're not necessarily goal threats anyway. So we didn't really have a lot going forward in the first half, and our ability to create chances from wide areas wasn't really that effective, just because we didn't have enough guys to attack the crosses and whatnot. So they either had to be pinpoint, like find the foot of Havertz, find the foot of Kante, find the foot of Ziyech, who probably should have scored. He was caught flat-footed one time in the box, and the ball came right to him, and he probably should have just buried it with his left, but didn't. But for the most part, I felt like we didn't have the same sort of presence, in the first half as we did in the second half when we were attacking. And that is just down to committing more bodies forward and changing the angles where we're looking to attack. One of the wrinkles that we all noticed, I'm sure I'm not the only one that noticed, is that Chelsea decided to attack more centrally in the second half, and it worked extremely well. We thought we were a lot more dangerous there when we realized that when we put it into the dangerous areas, into the middle areas of the pitch, try to work it into the likes of Ziyech and Havertz and Callum centrally, the fact that their defense wasn't really aggressively trying to challenge any of those guys. They were able to get on the ball, control it, and then make a decision from there. More times we did it, the more effective it got. We just started overloading that same area of the pitch, where you saw the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi and Havertz attacking the same ball from the same area on the pitch. And it proved effective. Like a lot of our dangerous moves in the second half were initiated from Chelsea, moving the ball into the middle areas of the pitch and trying to attack from there. ultimately, our goals came from, basically working it out to the flank again. But you only get those opportunities when you show the defense that you aren't afraid to work it into the middle areas and you give them something else to think about in those areas. So it was a good tactic. I thought that once we changed the point of attack in the second half, the game just opened up for us. And you only knew that it was only a matter of time before we were going to get the breakthrough. And it came once we brought on the likes of obviously Ross Barkley and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who often get in the box and often provide us with, some considerable box presence. So when in the first half we saw guys coming in with like 2s and 3s, in the second half it became 4s and 5s. And when you get to those numbers, you have a lot more opportunities to score goals when you have, Reece James back post. You have Callum Hudson-Odoi wreaking havoc on the left wing, and then of course the likes of Havertz, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and Ross Barkley. So for me, that was where the change occurred. The fact that we decided to attack more centrally. You saw even the likes of Ziyech, who I thought he had a decent game. I thought that he played it the right way and was unlucky not to score. The strike that he took, even though he was offside, that strike was pretty disgusting. And hopefully that's in a performance that he can build off of, and get back to entering the thoughts of the manager and being one of Chelsea's more threatening attackers. But like I said, I really do think that the point of attack that changed in the second half made us a lot more threatening and gave us a lot more opportunities to really hurt Newcastle, who really didn't put up much of a fight. If you're getting into those dangerous areas, the teeth of the defense, and you're unopposed, there's some zero resistance, and it's just a matter of time before you're going to score. But I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. Chelsea travel to St. James Park. Should be retitled the St. Reece James Park. Let's be honest, the man just owned them. The patron saint of Newcastle, the Magpies, is Reece James from now on. But it's just impressive, man. Obviously, the opposition in the last couple of matches hasn't really been that strong. We scored 10 goals in the last 2 games, 14 from 3 if you include Malmo. We haven't really seen the best levels from our opposition, but you can only really beat what's in front of you. And as many have rightly said, these are the kinds of games that Chelsea would normally stumble on, in the past, where you expect to go in there and dominate and win and come away with 3 or 4 goals. More often than not, we go into those fixtures and do not do what we're supposed to. So, it's great to see that we're taking the opportunities that are presented to us. Great to see that we're scoring boatloads of goals, both home and away. Great to see guys like Reece James getting on the score sheet. Great to see our defenders contribute. What am I saying? Our defenders are our goal scorers. We have 12 goal contributions from our defenders alone. And that only bodes well for us going forward. The fact that we're going to be able to rely on some other goal scoring outside of Lukaku, Werner, Havertz, and maybe Pulisic. This cannot be a bad thing. The fact that we have so many goal contributions from all over the pitch. Like I said, we got 12 goal contributions from our defenders. Our main outlet of attack right now is coming from defense, and that's only going to help the likes of Werner and Lukaku going forward, knowing that teams aren't going to be able to scheme for those particular individuals alone. They're going to have to account for the likes of Reece James. They're going to have to account for Rudiger, who likes to maraud forward and get into the box as well. They're going to have to account for Mason Mount and whatnot. And what that will do is just provide more space for the likes of Lukaku to set teams on their heels. The fact that they have to be thinking about the other aspects of our team that also have goals in them. So this is exactly what you want. When you're challenging for a title, you're challenging for cups and whatnot. You want the goals to come from not only unexpected sources, but also from sources where teams they have to take into account. Teams are going to have to account for Lukaku. They're going to have to account for Werner. They're going to have to account for Havertz, but more importantly, they're going to have their heads on a swivel and look for the runs from the other components of this team, the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, Ross Barkley when he gets an opportunity, obviously the man of the match, Reece James, Chilwell on the other side. So this is great news, man. The fact that we're getting so many different goal contributions so early in the season. You know, this team is going to hit its stride eventually. You know it's going to happen once we get healthy again. We got Burnley coming in next match, and you know, again, it's going to be another test. Like, where are these goals going to come from? I ask this every match, and every match so far it's been answered. You know, like, we have a goal scoring committee, and we don't necessarily need our strikers, our recognized strikers, to deliver the hammer blow. Burnley's going to be another test. I want to see Havertz have more of a presence on the pitch. I didn't think he had a bad game again. I thought he played really well, and probably on another day could have scored. Had the penalty, but without the penalty, probably could have rounded the keeper and scored again, just like he did in the Champions League final. Seems to be his go-to move, fake and then shimmy the goaltender. But yeah, like, we're going into the international break, and hopefully after the Burnley game, we can get some of the likes of Pulisic back up and running. Mason Mount, who was sick today, we can get him back. We can get the likes of, obviously, Werner and Lukaku back again as well. If we get those guys healthy and firing, there's no telling what this team can achieve. But you know what to do, guys. Keep the blue flag flying high, and up to Chelsea. Peace.